Libra, Nesidu, who are the three angels that protect you? Have you ever stopped to think about who, inside you, decides when it's time to be quiet? Because it's not you, not in the way you imagine. There's someone, or something, working long before your consciousness comes into play. And there are angels here, 3 to be exact. And they're not hovering in the sky, decorative and pretty. They're inside you, working in shifts, since long before you learned the word balance. One of them puts out fires before they even start. Another transforms your pain into something beautiful enough for you to bear. And the third holds your decisions in a kind of eternal waiting room, convinced that waiting is always safer than choosing. You'll recognize all 3. You might even give each one a name in the middle of the video without me having to tell you. And when you finally see all 3 of them together working at the same time, something inside you will make sense in a way it never has before. The first of these is the guardian of silence before the war. He doesn't wait for the conflict to happen. He senses it coming from afar, like someone who smells rain before the first drop, and he's already working to ensure it never truly happens. You rearrange the room before the angry visitor arrives. You choose your words with almost surgical care. You give a little here, adjust a little there, and the war never comes to fruition. From the outside, this seems like peace. From the inside, it's something else entirely, because every time this guardian acts, he prevents something from happening. But he doesn't just prevent conflict, he also prevents his own anger from surfacing. And here's the first unsettling question of the night. Where does the anger that was never allowed to exist go? It doesn't disappear. That's what nobody told you. It changes shape. It becomes a tiredness that has no clear explanation. It becomes that unease after a conversation that, on paper, went well. It becomes a body that holds tension in its shoulders, in its jaw, in a place you can't even name properly. You are, without realizing it, an elegant version of a pressure cooker, decorated, organized, smelling good, but there's still a pressure cooker. And if this guardian exists to protect you from conflict with others, a question remains unanswered. Who protects you from the guardian itself? Think about it. How many times have you swallowed an entire sentence just to keep the mood light? How many times have you said it's okay when it wasn't? Not because you're weak, because deep down, a part of you decided, a long time ago, that maintaining harmony was worth more than being heard. And nobody asked if you agreed with this exchange. It simply happened too soon, in a way that was too automatic for you to have realized. The strange thing is that this guardian never sleeps. He works in meetings, at family dinners, in text messages that you rewrite 3 times before sending. He even works when you're alone, rehearsing conversations that may never happen, just to make sure that, if they do, you already know exactly how to keep everything peaceful. And perhaps the question isn't what to do with this pent-up anger. Perhaps the question is something else, entirely, deeper, more uncomfortable. What have you lost of yourself, year after year, so that this external peace could continue to exist? This question is difficult to answer on your own because it requires you to look at a pattern that formed before you had the language to explain it. It was in seeking answers to these reflections that the digital book, The Divine Wisdom That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Purposeful Life, was born. More than just a simple read, it brings together teachings, interpretations, and exercises to help you understand patterns, develop a more conscious attitude, and cultivate a stronger mindset in the face of difficulties. For those born under the sign of Libra, it functions less as a book of ready-made answers and more as a patient mirror, an invitation to recognize what you're doing internally, to keep everything peaceful externally, and to consciously begin choosing what continues to serve you and what no longer does. It's not about stopping the search for balance. It's about stopping getting lost in the pursuit of others' harmony and starting to include yourself in that equation again. Many people have already begun to look at their own patterns in this way and have discovered a different way to deal with their own challenges. Access to the digital book is available in the first pinned comment, should you wish to understand in more depth what you have just recognized in yourself. If something you just heard resonated with you, this might be a good time to take that step while the issue is still fresh in your mind. The link is in the first pinned comment. Click now and calmly explore what this content can reveal about your own patterns. Before we continue, leave a comment below. Which of these phrases have you ever said, knowing it wasn't entirely true, just to keep things peaceful? But the guardian of silence does not work alone. There is a second one, even more silent, who acts in a different direction. He does not prevent the conflict outside. He reorganizes the pain inside. Have you ever noticed that you rarely feel an emotion in its raw form? It always goes through a filter before it reaches you. Sadness becomes a specific song that you choose to listen to alone. Anger becomes a well-constructed, almost poetic phrase instead of a scream. Loss becomes a ritual, a composition, something with form. It's as if you can't feel the raw pain, only the version of it already translated into beauty. This is the second angel, the translator, and he is generous. He saves you from being swallowed by emotions that, without this translation, might be too much to bear alone. But he also demands a price that almost no one realizes they are paying, because if all your pain first goes through a process of embellishment before reaching you, have you ever truly felt the pain? Or have you been living for years inside an edited version of your own emotional life? Imagine a photo album where only the good photos make it in. The ones with the right lighting, the right angle, a genuine smile, or almost. Over time, this album becomes the official story. But real life is also made up of the photos that were left out, the ones that nobody took, the raw moments that never became any beautiful image. You keep inside yourself a presentable version of everything you've ever felt. And perhaps that's why, sometimes in the middle of the night, or in a silence greater than usual, something tightens your chest for no apparent reason. It's not without reason. It's the original pain, the one that has never been edited, finally trying to be felt. What would happen if, just for a moment, you stopped translating and let things arrive exactly as they are? Perhaps you've felt this without knowing how to name it, that feeling of being well, functionally well, productively well, and yet feeling that there's a truer version of yourself hidden somewhere, waiting to be found without the filter that beauty imposes. That's exactly the difference between living and simply presenting a well-edited life. And it's precisely this kind of recognition that the digital book, the divine wisdom that guides your zodiac sign to a purposeful life, helps you work on, not by teaching you to edit better, but by teaching you to recognize when you are doing so, and to create space to feel what is real, without needing to transform it into something presentable first. For Libra, this is one of the most liberating parts of the process, understanding that beauty and truth don't have to be the same thing all the time, and that there's enormous power in allowing some emotions to appear exactly as they are, without any editing. The link is in the first pinned comment. Click now and start exploring this path towards the clarity and balance you deserve. And there is a third guardian, perhaps the most discreet of the three, because he does not act by avoiding conflict, nor by translating pain. He acts by postponing choices. Imagine two doors. You're standing exactly between them, feeling that the moment you enter one, the other will close forever. It's not about not knowing what you want. Often you know exactly. It's just that deciding seems, to this guardian, more dangerous than remaining standing there in the hallway, looking at both options at the same time. This is the third angel, the guardian of the postponed decision. He protects you from making the wrong choice, delaying the decision until it seems safer, more obvious, more right. The problem is that life rarely waits while you calmly decide. Every minute in the hallway is also a minute lived, just without choosing. And here's the question he never lets you ask out loud. Is the time you gain by postponing really time gained? Or is it time silently slipping through your fingers while you wait for a certainty that may never fully arrive? You know people of other signs who make quick decisions, make quick mistakes, and move on quickly. And maybe, secretly, a part of you envies them, not because they get things right more often, but because they don't get stuck in the hallway as long as you do. Now imagine the three guardians together, working simultaneously on the same person, on the same ordinary day. The first preventing conflict from exploding, the second transforming each pain into something bearable, beautiful, presentable. The third postponing any choice that might seem too risky. Separately they seem like protection. Together they form something else. Imagine three extremely dedicated, extremely competent security guards standing at the door of a house. They do their job so well that, over time, no one else can get in. Not even visitors, not even uncomfortable truths, not even, most importantly, the homeowner himself, trying to return to his inner self after years of living on the outside, managing the entry of others. This is the great paradox of Libra. The very mechanisms that exist to protect him are, over time, the ones that distance him most from who he truly is. Not because they are evil, because they were never switched off. Because they continue to work exactly as they learned to work long ago, without anyone ever asking if they were still necessary in that way. And the heavy question that lingers in the air is this: what remains of you when the three angels finally rest? This is exactly the kind of question that's easier to answer with the right company. The digital book. The divine wisdom that guides your zodiac sign to a purposeful life was designed for this specific moment, not to eliminate your protective mechanisms, but to help you recognize them, understand where they came from, and consciously decide which ones still make sense to carry. For Libra, this is usually the beginning of a much more honest relationship with oneself. The link is in the first pinned comment. Click now and start exploring the path to the clarity and balance you deserve. But perhaps the answer to that question isn't as frightening as it first appears, because when the three angels rest, even if only for a moment, what appears isn't emptiness. It's you, only without the constant layer of administration on top. It's your raw will, not yet translated into something palatable for others. It's your anger, existing, without needing to immediately turn into polite silence. It's your indecision, present, but without the weight of needing to be resolved before anything happens. There is a huge difference between eliminating a guardian and finally seeing it. Eliminating it would be dangerous, and it wouldn't even be true, because these three mechanisms also built good things in you. They built your sensitivity to pick up on the atmosphere of a room before any words are spoken. They built your ability to find beauty in places where most only see chaos. They built a rare patience to not decide impulsively, to truly weigh things up before acting. The problem was never having these guardians. The problem was not knowing they existed. It was confusing their work with your own entire personality, thinking that you were literally made of harmony, beauty, and balance, without realizing that there was a person behind these three functions, a person who also feels raw anger, unfiltered pain, and certainty without needing to weigh each side to exhaustion. And here is perhaps the quietest turning point of all this. You don't need to fire the angels. You need to stop letting them decide alone. You need to start asking, instead of simply obeying automatic responses, is this peace I'm creating now necessary, or is it just an old habit trying to avoid discomfort that today I would already have the strength to overcome? This pain that I'm about to embellish, could it this time simply be felt without needing to become art first? This decision I'm postponing, is the hallway still safer than either of the two doors? These questions may seem small, but they change everything, because they give you back something that the three angels unintentionally have been taking away over the years: the authorship of your own choices. It's not about blaming who you were until now. It's about understanding that the child who learned very early on that the peace of the home depended on her, that beauty could safely hide pain, that waiting was wiser than risking, was doing the best she knew how with the tools she had. She wasn't wrong. She just didn't yet have the strength you have now. And it's curious to think that much of the mythology surrounding Libra speaks precisely to this, without anyone realizing it. The scales are not a symbol of perfect balance, achieved and ready. It's a symbol of constant movement, of continuous adjustment, of something that never stops, because life never stops either. Perhaps the mistake was thinking that one day the scales would be still, definitively straight, and that only then would you be allowed to rest. But Libra's rest will never come from immobility. It will come from accepting that movement is its very nature, and that this is not a flaw to be corrected. There's a scene you may have already experienced, even without realizing its significance. A moment when, for some reason, you couldn't smooth things over in time. The difficult conversation happened unedited, without perfect preparation. And, against all your inner predictions, the world didn't collapse. People stayed there, perhaps even closer than before, because they finally encountered the real version of you, instead of the carefully managed version. If this has ever happened to you, cherish that memory. It's living proof that the three angels, however powerful they may seem, are not the only possible way for you to exist in the world. Perhaps this is Libra's deepest beauty, the kind that no horoscope cliché can capture. It's not the ability to please everyone, it's the capacity, still under construction, to learn to include oneself in one's own search for harmony. To understand that a peace that excludes you is not complete peace, it's just an elegant postponement of one's own discomfort. And that Libra's true mastery lies not in never wavering, but in knowing over time how to consciously guide oneself to where the scale's own weight leans. So the next time you feel that automatic urge to smooth things over, to beautify, to postpone, try just pausing for a second before acting. Not to stop the guardian, it's done a good job so far and deserves some gratitude for that, but to gently ask if that action is still necessary, or if this time you can simply allow yourself to exist without any management whatsoever. There are three angels watching over you since long before you were old enough to choose. They came from the fear of losing love, of losing belonging, of making mistakes in a world that, for a small child, seemed too big and too dangerous to navigate without a careful map. They did exactly what they promised to do. They protected you, and for that reason, they deserve to be seen, not hidden, not denied, not hastily expelled. But now, as an adult, with more inner resources than that child ever had, perhaps it's time for a different kind of conversation with them. Not one of rebellion, one of partnership. You can maintain the sensitivity to sense the atmosphere before everyone else, without having to silence your own voice to do so. You can continue to find beauty amidst the pain, without having to wait for it to become art before it deserves to be felt. You can continue to weigh decisions carefully, without turning every door into a paralyzing fear. Perhaps this is the true wisdom of the scales that Libra carries. Not the absence of weight, but the ever-growing courage to consciously decide what goes on one side, what goes on the other, and to accept that some movement will always exist, because that, in the end, is what it means to be alive. The three angels will remain there, veterans, tired, but loyal. And you, now seeing each of them by name, can finally choose when to trust them blindly and when, with quiet courage, to move forward without them nearby, just to discover who you are when no one, not even your own inner guardians, is managing what you feel.